Today, the film industry is widely regarded as a male-dominated industry.
And here are the all-male nominees.
However, it wasn't always that way. In 1926, the Los Angeles Times wrote that one of the most important positions in the motion picture industry is held almost entirely by women. Many young women were hired as film patchers and negative cutters because the tedious process of cutting and taping together film strips was similar to sewing. Even though this was considered menial labor, women found a way to bring creativity to their work. Margaret Booth would stay late in the editing room, experimenting with unused footage. She discovered that using a close-up to punctuate a scene could create an increased emotional impact.
Lord, much as I desire to live, I'm not afraid to die. Since I first sailed on the Bounty over 4 years ago, I've known how men can be made to suffer worse things than death.
Booth's innovative ideas impressed MGM's head of production, who coined the term film editor to describe her position.
Isn't it wonderful that one can win an award for something one loves to do? And I love my work.
During this time, studios moved directors between projects quickly, and oftentimes kept directors out of the editing room entirely, which allowed editors more creative freedom. As a result, editing transformed from menial labor to a crucial part of the storytelling process. Men noticed this shift and began pursuing careers in editing. Says editor Ann V. Coates about this transition. While it was just a background job, they let the women do it. But when people realized how interesting and creative editing could be, then the men elbowed the women out of the way and kind of took over. In 1940, the Los Angeles Times declared lady film cutters a vanishing profession. Entry-level positions were now going to men more often than women, and it would become increasingly difficult for women to work their way into the studio's editing rooms. One woman who succeeded at this was Dee Dee Allen, who worked her way up from a production runner to a sound librarian to an assistant editor until she edited her first feature. Allen was daring with her artistic editing style, using audio overlaps and stylized jump cuts that dismissed conventional continuity. Her ideas were so provocative that she was fired from Bonnie and Clyde by Jack Warner. However, Warren Beatty was so impressed by her ingenuity that he personally paid her salary to keep her on the project. The success of Bonnie and Clyde established Allen as an inventive editor, and her illustrious career spanned over 50 years. Ann V. Coates had a similar career path, working her way up the ladder until she gained mainstream recognition for cutting Lawrence of Arabia. This is considered one of the most famous cuts in film history, with the graphic match of the flame to the heat of the desert instantly transporting the audience to a new location. However, it almost didn't exist.
Like today, I would have done the dissolve in the machine and we would never seen it as a direct cut.
Right.
But because it was filmed, we saw this cut together like that. And David and I both almost at the same moment looked at each other and said, that's a wonderful cut.
Another film celebrated for its brilliant editing is Jaws. Verna Fields won the Best Editing Oscar for her work and was praised for her newly invented white thigh cut, as well as her ability to create tension. She said of the process, "There's a feeling of movement in telling a story, and there is a flow. On Jaws, each time I wanted to cut, I didn't, so that it would have an anticipatory feeling. And it worked." During this time, several female editors were developing close working relationships with directors. Perhaps the most famous of these is Thelma Schoonmaker and Martin Scorsese, who have worked together for over 50 years.
I love working for Marty. I am blessed by having a director who actually is doing 50% of my work in the way he is conceiving it and laying it down on film so that when we get in the editing room, it's got a conception, it's got a vision.
Quentin Tarantino and Sally Menke had a similar partnership until her sudden death in 2010. Tarantino had enormous respect for Sally as a collaborator, saying, "I don't write with anybody. I write by myself. But when it comes to the editing, I write with Sally." There are several other examples of these longtime director-editor relationships. However, in a 2017 survey, women accounted for only 16% of the editors of the top 250 films. Since men have dominated this field since the 1940s, it's hard to break this trend. As a young female editor, this is intimidating. But I wouldn't even have the courage to pursue this profession if I hadn't seen women like Thelma, Margaret, and Sally do it first. Seeing the space these women carved out for themselves and the creative editing work that continues to be done by women today is incredibly inspiring. It's hopefully the reason why our next generation will include even more female editors who are valued for their creative input and seen as equal collaborators. To echo what Anne V. Coates said in an interview about her career, "I've never looked at myself as a woman in the business. I've just looked at myself as an editor."